Welcome to AP European History with Dr. Brovkin. Today we continue our discussion of World War II on the Eastern Front, or Operation Barbarossa, or Great Patriotic War, as the Russians call it. Last time we spoke about the beginning of the war, the Battle of Smolensk, the terrible losses that the Soviet Union suffered, and now we come to the actual Battle of Smolensk. So we stopped discussing the grave mistake that Hitler made, which probably cost him the collapse of Operation Barbarossa, but maybe of the whole war, and that is his decision to divert the troops from the group of armies center, Guderian's army and von Bock's army, into direction of Kiev, which they did, and then they took Kiev, and then we're finally coming to the resumption of the offensive against Moscow. So this is the subject of today's discussion, the actual Battle of Moscow. Supply lines are overstretched. And of course, you have to understand, the deeper the German army goes into Russia, the more difficult it is to supply them with food, ammunition, warm clothes, and communications, because they were the ones who broke down all the telegraph lines. Well, now they have to restore them so that they have to communicate between the units spread out in the frozen fields. So the point is that deeper they advance into Russia, the more difficult is their task of maintaining the momentum. And momentum in time is everything in this war. So one could even say it's a kind of the same situation as with Napoleon. Napoleon did take Moscow, but he lost the war, and partly because of supply problems, supplies and manpower replacement. So let's put it a kind of a summary of who is at what position. Situation in November 7th during the parade. German lines are spread too thin, German replacement is not coming, German supplies are coming out to a standstill, and lack of clothes is really hurting the army. There is a new element that is now appearing. Russian encircled divisions are breaking out, and many of them are beginning to fight back because the German lines are so thin that they can now fight back and come out, and there are quite a few of them who did return breaking out of encirclement. The second important point is that for the first time there is an appearance of a legendary Soviet tank, T-34. Why it is legendary? Well, because this is the tank that won the war, basically. But it is in the letter of Guderian that who is a specialist in tanks, he basically says it's the best tank there is. Why? Because its armor could not be pierced by German tanks or German artillery. It's pretty heavily armored. It is maneuverable, it is light, and I could add it is cheap. And also Guderian wrote that the only way to shoot down T-34 was if you shoot from the back into its engine. So in other words, you have to kind of let it go and then throw a grenade from behind. That is the only way to stop T-34. And that means that for the first time ever in this war, the units with T-34s are breaking through German lines, but they cannot sustain the advance. But this is a foretaste of things to come. So this is something that is a total shocker, both to the Russians and to Guderian, that the Russian tanks can outperform German panzer. This is a shocker that he reports to Hitler. The third new element. Stalin throws into battle Siberian troops that now had using the technique